From the East and the West, you've heard others, but now you've tuned into the best. This is a Prime Wave Media production.
What's up, world? It's the one and only Pop DiBiase, the Primetime Capper. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling great. And it is time for the premier sports betting show, the Primetime Angles. And boy, oh boy, we got a jam-packed show for you today. Up first, Chiefs struggle against lowly Broncos, but still win 19-8. Are they still in Super Bowl contender? Oh, is that the question of the day? You know what I mean? Are they still a Super Bowl contender? Well, last night's game was pretty good for the Chiefs in a defensive sense because they stepped it up on that side of the ball. They were really good on the defensive side of the ball. They were able to force like 3 turnovers in the first quarter or something like that, 4 turnovers in the first half, and they pretty much sealed the game that way. But they didn't get much out of their offense last night because pretty much it seemed like they were coasting in the game. They just didn't seem very, very into it. You know what I mean? They just knew that they were going to beat the Broncos. And that was kind of a bad mentality, in my opinion, to have. You know what I mean? Because they just had this idea that they were just going to beat the Broncos. And no worries, we'll just wrap these guys up and we'll take care of our business. But it was just too many close calls in that game, you know? And the Broncos just did not take advantage of it. It was more about the Broncos losing than the Chiefs actually winning this game. That's the whole thing. And sometimes that just happens in the NFL. That's the way that you win in this league because your team is already used to winning. You know what I mean? And they already have it in their head that, okay, when the going gets tough, we'll get tougher. And that's exactly what they did last night on the defensive end. The offense was kind of confused last night. They really did not know what to do with the type of game plan that was presented to them by the Denver Broncos. But the thing was, they never panicked, and that's why they won this game. Andy Reid was doing some Madden almost joke stuff like, oh, let's do a quarterback sneak on a field goal. Let's go for it here at this portion of the field. But we know that we're not going to make it. But still, I'm just going to go for it anyway. And that's just how much respect he had for the Denver Broncos. It was really none last night, pretty much. And Andy Reid has shown that over the years. If you're a bad team, he's going to really try to see how bad of a team you truly are. And that's exactly what I saw last night. But when it came down to the X's and O's and really getting down to the nitty-gritty of the game, the Chiefs were levels ahead of the Broncos, and it just really showed. But the Broncos are a team that's really in disarray. They got guys there that don't want to buy into what Sean Payton's talking about. It's really not hard to see anymore. And then you have guys that are trying their best to salvage the season. And this is my last little point about the Broncos. You guys are so hard on the Broncos this season, but look at their first 3 games of the year. They could have been 3-0. Just think about that part right there. They could have been 3-0 the first 3 games of the season, okay? And they wound up not doing that, all right? First 3 games of the year. But actually, you know what? Let me take that back because the third game was that Dolphins game that they got absolutely crushed in. The first 3 out of 4 games, they could have won those games, okay? They could have been 3-1. And then think about it, they could have beat the Jets. So they could have easily been 4-1 going into this game. So the fixes for the Broncos are not really as crazy as everybody puts it out there to be. They really just need to figure out consistency, and they need to figure out a way to where the defense can keep games civil. You know what I mean? the defense has blown a bunch of leads in these games as well, too. Denver has led in every game that I was talking about that they could have won. So they could be a 3-2 team right now, but because of the way that the circumstances have went, or 4-2 actually, they could be a 4-2 team right now. But the way circumstances have went for this team, they're 1-5. They're 1-5 at this point. So it is what it is. But if you're in that locker room, you say to yourself, "Hey, you know what? We've weathered the storm, and we're going to get 10 days off here, so we should be able to get this thing together." Now, when I get to my point about the Chiefs did not impress me last night. I felt like the defense had to really save them a lot last night. And yes, Patrick Mahomes is still a dynamic quarterback. He's the man. He's the guy. You know, he's the MVP. He's the face of the NFL, blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, sometimes he can be a detriment to this team because he's playing too reckless. And yeah, I know it seems like I'm talking crazy because he went 30 for 40, 306, had a touchdown, but threw an interception, also was sacked twice, but should have been sacked a lot more times than that because his offensive line just isn't there. He had a QBR 94.4. That's decent. You know, it's decent. And, you know, pretty much having Kelsey last night, being as open as he was, that was very helpful. Kelsey had 9 catches for 124 yards. And then you also had a good effort from Pacheco last night, who had 16 carries on 62 yards, and then had 36 yards through the air. So he wound up getting himself pretty much almost 100 total yards last night, which was a 0.25% of their offense last night as well, too. So there's a lot of things that the Chiefs are doing well as a team. Everybody's involved. But what happens when they start taking things away from you and you play against a better team? I'm looking at the Chiefs' schedule. When you look at their schedule, think about it. Who did they play on their schedule that's really a good team? Detroit. And Detroit beat them. Okay, you can go back and say, oh, Jacksonville. Jacksonville wasn't really that good at that point in time. Jacksonville is now getting into the flow of things. Okay, Chicago, forget about it. New York Jets, forget about it. Minnesota, forget about it. Denver, forget about it. 4 straight teams that are 4 cakewalks for this group. Now, next week, they have to host the Chargers. The Chargers will be the true test for the Chiefs this season to show us if they're really real. You know what I mean? If they can really play against these elite teams in the NFL. They're beating up on the average and below average teams, but at the end of the day, though, it seems like they're just not good enough to stay up with the elite teams, even with your boy Patrick Mahomes. I'm sorry. Patrick Mahomes was able to just kind of play around last night because he had a Denver defense that kind of is already broken in a sense, but they were able to look decent last night because they know the tendencies of Patrick Mahomes. Now, next week, you're going to have to deal with Joey, if Bosa's healthy, Khalil Mack, and you have various new guys on that front 7 that are going to be key as well, too. Only thing that the Chargers have issues with is that back end on the defensive end. And I'm telling you right now, that's going to wind up being the game of the week. I don't even know how that game is going to be at 1:25 in the afternoon. To be honest with you, that game should be a Sunday night football game. But you just can't keep putting the Chiefs in prime time. I know that. So pretty much with that, the Chiefs are still the defending champions. They still know what they're doing, but they don't have the personnel at this point right now that tells me they're going to repeat as Super Bowl champions or even get back to the Super Bowl. Anything can go down in the next 10, 12, 15 weeks or whatever, but still, today, right now, I'm not saying they're a Super Bowl team. They're not nowhere near a Super Bowl team because they had to skate by a bad team last night in the Broncos. But as I already just said, the Broncos kind of proved to us they're not that bad of a team. It's just that they're going through a bad stretch. You get me? You with me? All right. So we move forward. And where do we go from here? We go into baseball. Phillies win NLDS 3-1, knocking out the top seed Braves for the second year in a row. Well, now the Dodgers don't have to sit up in here and be the only one that is seen as, chokers, because once again, the Braves did what they are very used to, choke in the playoffs. They did it for a long time in the 90s and pretty much didn't get back to the playoffs for a while and then started choking again. So pretty much they go out, they have the best record in all of baseball this year. They were called the most unbeatable team, period, point blank. They had the great pitchers. They had the great hitters. They had everything working in the right direction for this team. And then they ran into the buzzsaw, the Philadelphia Phillies. This team has been an annoyance for the Braves for the last few seasons, okay? And you knew going into it, if they did not get those first 2 wins in Atlanta, it was going to be very tough for them to win in Philadelphia, okay? Because you have to put some pressure on Philadelphia when you go into Philly. Philly split the first 2 games and were ecstatic about doing that because they knew if getting back to Philadelphia, they weren't going back to Atlanta. And we pretty much knew that as soon as they won game 1, that this was going to be a difficult series for the Braves moving forward. The Braves got them a good win, a comeback win, game 2. And then game 3, they just couldn't stop the onslaught of homers and momentum that came with the Braves with the Phillies home game. And then last night, it just turned into a straight-up pitcher's duel. The Braves got the lead, and then they gave up 3 unanswered home runs. It's that simple. It's that simple. And when their star player, their MVP, Ronald Acuna, had a clutch moment that he could have been a great moment for him, but it winds up being a moment that's going to be, that was their best opportunity to win a game. He flies out with the bases loaded. Amazing. The bases were loaded. All he had to do was just hit a CNI single, some just over the top of an infielder's head, but no, he wanted to go for the glory and try to hit a home run. And it wound up not coming to that, because what happened was that it was a warning track flyout, and those ones really hurt, because that possibly if you would have just been a little easier on the hit, you could have probably got an actual hit. I'm not hating. I play baseball. I know how the game works. And there's times where you can power up and hit a home run, and then there's times where you got to just sit down and try to get yourself a quick base hit, something over the infielder's head, something that's going to drop in, or hit the ball as hard as you can to where they're not going to be able to get to it fast enough. But when you're looking for the homer, you better extend on it. But a lot of times in those situations, it's really tough because you're thinking way too much. And I'm not trying to say Ronald Acuna is not clutch, but let's dial it back on whatever expectations you guys had for this guy moving forward. He's a great player who had a great season. That doesn't mean that he's going to duplicate that every single year. And last night proved that to me, okay? So pretty much all in all, the Braves are going to get this shit into the stick here, because everybody feels that the Braves should have won this series, should be moving on, should be the World Series team. They've really made so many tickets confetti at this point. But do you understand? Vegas never made them a minus. Vegas always had them at plus 250, plus 280. Same thing with the Dodgers, because they understand how this baseball thing works. Nobody's guaranteed to get to the next level in the game. And that's exactly what this playoff just showed us, that nobody should expect to be advancing to the next round until they win in the round that they're already in. And that's where the top 3 teams got into trouble, because they didn't take those games as serious as they should have, in my opinion. I think that they should have been on the A game. Only team that seriously was in some trouble going into their playoff series was the Orioles. The Braves should be good enough to beat the Phillies by now. The Dodgers were superior compared to the Diamondbacks. They both dropped those series because they were both looking ahead to each other. It's that simple, okay? And at the end of the day, now we got the Phillies and the D-backs, and that's going to be our National League Championship Series. But once again, kudos to the Phillies. The Phillies, this is well deserved for this team. As I said, in 30 teams in 30 days, if you pick out anybody out the group that's not going to be a team that wins their division but can get into the World Series, it's the Phillies. And they did it again. Because I looked at the Phillies roster and I said to myself, this Phillies roster is special. They're not going to probably get to 100 wins because they're not going to have Bryce the first 90 days of the year. But once they get Bryce back, they'll turn into one of the best teams in baseball. And that's exactly what happened. So let's go ahead, jump into our next topic, which is going to be the NLCS Preview. And with the NLCS Preview, we have ourselves a very, very good series in a sense because you got the two teams that really fought to be here. You know what I mean? You have the Arizona Diamondbacks who had to wait until the final weekend to know if they were going to be in the playoffs or not. They literally were locked in with the Marlins, and they held off the Reds and the Cubs. And the Reds and the Cubs probably were the funnest story of the summer. Nobody was expecting Marlins and D-backs. You know what I mean? Nobody was expecting some of the newest teams in the MLB, because you have to understand that these teams all came in the same decade in a sense, and they were a part of this new era, this new idea for baseball. You had Colorado, you had Arizona, and you had two teams in Florida, something that we had never done before. Now we're winding almost 30 years later. The Arizona Diamondbacks are back in the playoffs again. They won a title back in 2001, and that was a fun moment. That was a great moment for that team. That was a great moment for that city. But you know what? In a way, they got kind of in the way of what would have been a great historical moment, because, you know, everybody was pushing for the Yankees to win because that was when it was 9/11. So, you know, this time around, they got a little bit of a different feel to them. They're the upset kids again, but they weren't supposed to be here. And now they got to go against this Phillies team that is overconfident and uber confident, and they deserve every right to be confident because they're playing great baseball. And at the end of the day, this team is going to make it to where it's going to be very tough for the Diamondbacks. But I also say the Diamondbacks are going to make it very tough for the Phillies. The Phillies are already the team that everybody has already circled to win this series. I don't think that's the smartest idea when you have a Diamondbacks team that's pretty much the hottest team in the playoffs right now. They have lost no games. They're 5-0. They've been dominant. They gave up 6 runs in total to the Dodgers, all right? And I think they gave up 4 runs in total to the Brewers. So right now, this team is giving up 10 runs in 5 games. And then they're scoring at least, 4 or better each game. So they have figured it out. Good pitching, great hitting. Good pitching, great hitting. And that's exactly what the Diamondbacks are doing right now. The Phillies, same thing. Very hot, very consistent, but they've been here before. You look at everybody on that D-back side and say, you know what? A lot of you guys barely been in the playoffs. The only person you can even call out that's done anything bigger than just being in the playoffs is Evan Longoria, and he's a dinosaur now. Tommy Pham, who's always been a utility player. So pretty much those are their veterans right now, but they're pushing the cart for this team. And I truly do think that, you know what? It's time to shake this thing up a little bit. I know I said on my show, Philly should win the World Series. Woo, 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 woo. But you know what? I'm chasing value. And I think that, you know what? I woke up this morning, I said that don't count out the Diamondbacks, because you were a person that saw how good they were going to be early in the season. And they're right where you knew they could be if they believed in themselves. They believe in themselves. They got the confidence. The Phillies got the confidence too. But you're riding off the Diamondbacks. And it feels like when you're riding off a team in this playoff this year in the MLB, that team prevails. So I'm not going to be on the ride off the Diamondbacks. I'm going to go ahead and grab the plus 160. That's what I'm going to do. So with that, that's going to be a wrap on our baseball talks, and we'll have more to talk about on Monday. So let's move forward and jump into our NBA preview. And I already know all my players from the D, all my Detroit players, stand up. I'm talking about your team, the Pistons, formerly known as the Bad Boys. They still, considered the Bad Boys by a lot of their fans and everything like that. But that was a long time ago. Let's keep it real. And it was kind of revisited in the early 2000s. But since then, Detroit has been pretty much a wash. Okay, let's keep it real. I say it goes back down to bad drafting. Right after they got done with their run of going to the finals and everything, they still were in the playoffs. And they were probably the last team that kept a core group together for a decade or so. And you don't see that in the NBA anymore. I was looking at the 90s the other day. The Lakers didn't even split up their group, their core group, until about 1991. Same thing goes with the Pistons as well, too. The Bulls didn't break up their core group until 1998 after they won the last title. And that just goes to show you how teams are consistent in this league when they're able to stick together with 6-7 guys that are going to be with this team for the next 5 to 6 years. The Pistons, I feel, have put themselves in that group to do that now, because they have a guy in Cade Cunningham that they believe a lot in. They believe a lot in Jaden Ivey as well, too. They went ahead and spent the assets to go get James Wiseman. They still got Durant as well, too, another very versatile big man. So, they have a lot of things working out for them. But the Ausar Thompson, okay, I got to make sure it's the right one, though, too, because it's Ausar and Amen. And I'm telling you right now, this Thompson twin is going to be the difference with this team this year. Period, point blank. Okay? He's going to be a guy that's going to bring back those hard-working guys in the NBA. Guys that are just, and it's Ausar because Amen plays for the Rockets. But these guys are straight out of Oakland. They played high school basketball in Florida, and they just play the game of basketball the right way. They just do. 20 years old, and they know how to do it all. And they are really good players. We know we'll talk about his brother when we talk about Houston, but I feel that Amen is going to be, I feel like Ausar, is going to be very, very vital to this Pistons team. The Pistons made sure they got the kid in the first 10 picks. And I think that if he can get comfortable quick enough in the NBA, he can become not the vocal leader of this team, but the lead by example guy on this team. And that can be something incredible for Detroit, because Detroit needs a jolt in the arm. Detroit is one of the better basketball cities in all of the NBA. Let's keep it real. And when the Detroit Pistons are playing great basketball, the NBA is making some good money. You want to have these teams good. You want to have the Pistons good. You want to have the Bulls good. You want to have the Cavs good, because these are all cities that feed into the greater basketball populations. These guys live for basketball. Chicago, they live for it. Detroit, they live for it. Cleveland, they live for it. And these cities are important. And when the basketball teams are bad, that kind of takes away from a kid having that dream of wanting to play basketball further on down the road. So this team right here is a team that has to make their mark, in my opinion. They can't just be the same old Pistons that they've been for the last 15 years. It's a new day. It's a new time. And I truly do feel that this team can put themselves in position to possibly be a team that's going to be much better than a 9th or 8th seed this year. They could be a 7th seed this year. They have components to put them in place. But are you ready to win? That's the question. And I know a lot of people probably thinking, damn, Poppy kind of tripping. The East is wide open, okay? And with a team like Detroit, all they did was improve. They went and got a guy that I feel will finally be the piece that they can get out the lottery. And I know that's what they want. Detroit actually tried to play a little hard last year, but they just did not have the players for that because they were too young. Now they're a year older. Caden Cunningham comes back fresh off of his injury, more confidence going into this season. So there's a lot of things that the Pistons have in place that can put the Pistons in position to be one of the better teams, one of the better improved teams in the NBA. And I think that anything's possible. You know what I mean? Because the Eastern Conference, as I keep saying, once we get away from the top three, the top four, 5 through 8 is wide open. So that really means 5 through 10 is wide open. And so pretty much the Pistons can put their hat in the ring for that, and I feel that this team doesn't think that they're developing into building something. They're trying to develop into a winner at this point. All the time for building and everything like that's been the last 3 years. But now it's time to go ahead and really cash the check about this situation. And where are they at? Let's see where they at when it comes to their over-under this year. I'm trying to get it for you guys right now. The over-under for the Pistons. Pistons over-under win total. They got them over under 28.5 wins. I think that the Pistons are at minimum 30-win team. At max, a 41-41 team. That sounds crazy at this moment right now, but we ain't started the league yet. But I definitely know that they're going over 28.5 games. They're better than that. They're much better than the 28.5 games that they're putting on them, okay? So with that, that's going to be a wrap on our first segments. And when we get back, we will jump into some boxing, and then we will talk about some Friday Night Lights college football as well too. So you guys stay tuned. This is the Premier Sports Betting Show, the PrimeTime Angles with the one and only Pop DiBiase, the PrimeTime Capper.
From the East and the West,
Not that.
Good News Only Racing Club, led by the legendary Doug O'Neill, the trainer of 2 Kentucky Derby winners and I'll Have Another and Nyquist. Also trained 2-time Breeders' Cup champ Golden Sense, who are just a part of a long list of thoroughbred champions trained by Doug O'Neill. The Good News Only Racing Club has a young core of horses to look out for in Dennis's Celery, Irish Heatwave, and Notre Dame, just to name a few. Win the day every day with the Good News Only Racing Club, a proud sponsor of the NFL Bet Exchange.
From the East and the West, you've heard others, but now you've tuned into the best. This is a Prime Wave Media production.
Tune into Big Wave Boxing every week with a brand new guest with the one and only Pop DiBiase, the PrimeTime Capper, getting the best boxing stories, best boxing angles, and the truth when it all comes down to the sweet science. Tune in to Big Wave Boxing on the Prime Wave Media channel on YouTube.
All right, we're back with the Premier Sports Betting Show, the PrimeTime Angles, with the one and only Pop DiBiase, the PrimeTime Capper. Let's go ahead and get into it. Let's talk about it, and that's going to be up first. Keyshawn Davis returns this weekend in another showcase fight on ESPN. Now, Keyshawn Davis is a kid that a lot of people are very excited about. They are very high on. They think that he's going to be, one of the best, when it's all said and done. I think he's a pretty good fighter. I really like what he's on. I like what he's been doing in the ring and everything like that. But when it comes to the way that he's selling himself, it's not good. You know what I mean? It's just all this bravado, and these guys are about 5'4", 5'5", walking around here like they're 6'5" monsters. You know what I mean? And it's funny. It's cool that you're that confident in yourself, but when you're in public, you should pretty much have some damn sense. You know what I mean? And, all that stuff that he was doing with Frank Martin and all the posturing and all that extra nonsense that he did during the Crawford Spence fight week was just unnecessary. And he really could have got hurt. That's what the problem was. You know what I mean? And there was another situation with another fighter, who's on Golden Boy, Floyd Schofield, that it almost did come to fisticuffs, and they actually had to have somebody from Keyshawn's camp call over to them to ask them to relax. You know what I mean? Because they were really adamant about catching a fade with him. And, it's cool to talk, but you have to be smarter than that at the end of the day. You got to be a true businessman. You know what I mean? Standing on business and saying all that other extra shit that all these people are saying nowadays, it's nonsense. Because when you're standing on business, you know how to be a professional. You know that you don't need to act up like that in public. And you know that at the end of the day, that all this stuff is going to make you better in the long run, but still, you got to have respect for your opponents, and you got to have respect for guys in the game as well too, because these boxers, they all go through the same thing, man. And at the end of the day, they'll all be friends, but because fans play the back and forth game so much, the he said, she said game so much, these guys feel like they have to show off. And you know what, Keyshawn, brother, you don't have to show off to anybody. You're a talented boxer. You are doing your thing. People are pulling up to watch you fight. People are actually excited about your future. So it's just keep doing what you're doing. You know what I mean? In the great words of Roger Mayweather. And you know what? Forget what these people are talking about. Forget what these guys who are challenging you are talking about. Nobody's in position to make the decisions that they keep thinking that they can make for themselves. You know what I mean? Everybody has a job. Boxers box, managers manage, promoters promote, networks network. That's how it goes. And I think that we got too many people wearing too many hats, and that's what the biggest problem with the game is right now. And it got way too many people confused. And I think this weekend should be a good example of a guy that's really matured. You haven't seen him on too much social media lately. He's making sure that he's on weight and all that good stuff, and making sure that he's taking care of his business. And that's something that you can truly commend. And hopefully he can go ahead and keep showcasing some superior skills this weekend. We don't know exactly how this fight's going to turn out, because he's going against a guy who's a very well unknown, but he's somebody that they said is kind of tough. So let's see if he's going to be kind of tough. So with that, we move forward. Let's go ahead and talk about the main event for that card on Saturday, and that's going to be this fight right here, which is going to be a fight with Janibek. Is this the next big thing in the middleweight division? Well, Janibek is a guy that I truly don't really can't figure him out. I just think that it's another Triple G. You know what I mean? And Triple G wasn't exciting to me. Triple G was a guy that cherry-picked club fighters, okay? And guys that were good prospects until they lost, okay? Triple G never fought anybody but Canelo. Keep it real. And Danny Jacobs, all right? That's it, okay? You can't – Matthew Macklin, no, okay? He fought two guys, Danny Jacobs and Canelo. And we all still have a little bit of a gripe with what happened with Danny Jacobs. And everybody still has a little gripe of what happened in Canelo Triple G won. So, you know what? At the end of the day, the karma caught up with Triple G, because he just tried to play the game, and the game played him. Janibek seems like the same exact movie. Oh, I'm the best. I'm going to kill everybody. I'm going to crush everybody. And then it's like, who you crushing here? Who you trying to fight here? And it's really the same person that they all want to fight. Cinnamon. Okay? Mr. Canelo. And that's all what they're pretty much angling for. Everybody wants that big Canelo fight. But Janibek somewhat seems a little different as well too. He seems like somebody who wants to get every single belt in the 160 division. And if he was to go ahead and do that, he would do himself a great service with that and focus in on that portion right there. So if he's into actually unifying these belts and fighting every 30 to every 90 to 120 days, sign me up. You know what I mean? 75, 90 days, sign me up, because he seems like he's the type of guy who would want to do that. And it seems like he's very adamant about chasing titles in this division. I think it's a unification fight coming up Saturday as well too. So it's going to be something huge for Janibek this weekend to prove that he does belong and he should be able to move forward and be a great middleweight champion. And we hope to see it, because at the end of the day, these guys, I root for all of them. Even if I think some of your decisions are questionable and all that good stuff, I do root for all these boxers to get to their end goal. And I think Janibek has the ambition that you need to have to get to your end goal. And he's somebody that, is trying to make sure you're paying attention to what he's doing. And hopefully they can start making some big fights for this guy and not use the whole boogeyman angle as a way to sell him. Just get the guy in the ring and get him fights. It's that simple. All this boogeyman, extra mumbo jumbo, nothing. It's always about because a guy can't book fights accordingly. That's why they're called the boogeyman, because they got bad businessmen trying to go ahead and make decisions for them. That's the reason why they're called the boogeyman, because they don't make good decisions, all right? Because at the end of the day, as I talked about with Angeletti just now, nobody in boxing that steps in the boxing ring and does it at the highest level is scared of each other, okay? You guys can just get rid of that fiction and that idea that you guys all sell on your little apps and your little formats and things, and know that these guys ain't scared of shit, okay? They're not scared of each other. And pretty much it's about you got them dollars, and do you got them dollars? That's what it's all about. So with that, let's move forward. Let's go ahead and jump into our next topic, and that's going to be the PBC fight this weekend, and that's going to be Tim Tszyu looks to secure the WBO title against Brian Mendoza. Brian Mendoza, who scored a monster upset over the Towering Inferno, Sebastian Fundora, who's kind of took a break. We thought we were going to get an automatic rematch between him and Mendoza, but you know what? They decided to do some other things at this point right now, and that he's chasing the WBC titles as well too. So you're kind of waiting on that title to be vacated, or your possibility of getting your opportunity against Charlo, I'm guessing at this point in time, or Sampson just went ahead and put him on the bench for a while so he could just enjoy life a little bit, because he was boxing a lot. But let's talk about this fight right here. Brian Mendoza is in the biggest fight of his life. Tim Tszyu is not officially the WBO champion as of yet. He'll be the WBO champion if he does win this fight against Brian Mendoza, because you have to understand that they're fighting for the vacant belt. They can say that he's the champion, but the thing is, he would become the full champion if he wins the fight, because he's the interim champion. And that was his mandate to fight Charlo. Now, since Charlo can't fight him because he's already fought, he decided to go ahead and, push the limits a little bit. And the WBO wound up stripping that belt from Charlo. But you're not truly the full champion until you actually win the fight that has the championship on the line. But he will go into the fight as the world champion, technically. But all in all, they're both chasing the same exact thing. He doesn't have Charlo's belt yet. They haven't sent a world title to him yet. He has to earn that world title. That's why I said looks to secure the WBO title. He's not the WBO champion. Just because you see a belt on his shoulder, that doesn't make him the champion. He's the interim champion, but technically he is the world champion going into the fight. But in reality, he's the interim champion. He has to win this fight to be the champ. It's so simple, it's stupid. You know what I mean? So it is what it is. But Tim Tszyu is taking on a good challenge here. Brian Mendoza is a guy that's pretty hungry to show that he's great at boxing. I think that Brian Mendoza has a great heart, you know, and I think that he's a gamer and he's a guy who shows up to work. But at the end of the day, it's levels to this game. And I think Tim Tszyu is just levels ahead of this guy to the point to where this is not going to be a long night, okay? Because honestly, Brian Mendoza was about a round or two away from being knocked out by Fundora. He was able to hit him with a good shot. Fundora got stunned, and he was able to put Fundora down in the fight. In this situation right here, he doesn't have the situation where he's going against the guy who's 6'7". He's going against a guy who's just about his height. So Tim Tszyu isn't going to be somebody he has to reach up at. But at the same time, too, Tim Tszyu is coming a lot faster than Fundora. And he's going to be throwing punches that are trying to end the night. That's the whole thing. He's not trying to just go up in here, pity-pat, get himself a points win. So it's going to be fireworks in this fight. And I truly do feel the way that the fight is setting up, if it does wind up going 12, I truly do feel Mendoza is in for a robbery if he does well. I'm going to keep it real with you. I'm just going to keep it real. They're in Australia, and Tim just has to do well enough. He doesn't have to just go in there. He doesn't have to dominate, okay? He just has to do well enough, okay? And well enough might be a fight that looks like a draw or a fight that slightly might lean towards Mendoza, but he looked good enough to where you don't know who actually won the fight. They'll hand the fight to Tim Tszyu. That's my whole thing. So if you're Brian Mendoza's corner, you have to let him know it's a knockout, bro. You have to knock him out. You have to stop him. You have to make sure that this does not go to the judges, because if it goes to the judges, it's out of our hands, and we can't guarantee a victory. We can't even think about guaranteeing a victory, okay? So they got to do right by their boxer and make sure that they demand he knocks him out. Because even in a dominant effort, they'll still figure out a way to try to get his fight to Tim Tszyu. I'm keeping it real with you guys. And that's because Tim Tszyu is the cash cow that they need for the long term. Brian Mendoza is an opponent, okay? And this is what happens when you're an opponent. They don't view you in the way of somebody that's going to come in here and actually win the fight. So you have to make them respect you at the end of the day, all right? And that's exactly what I see in this fight. Brian Mendoza has to make Tim Tszyu respect him. And if he can pull that off, he can possibly win this fight. But I truly do feel that Tim Tszyu is going to get comfortable around round 2 or 3, and he'll probably end this fight within 5 rounds, okay? But Brian Mendoza will be a guy that will engage, and he ain't running. I know that for sure. It's going to be a good fight. I think he will fare a lot better than Ocampo did in Tszyu's previous fight, because Ocampo is already cooked. He's done. He's through. All right, so with that, we move forward. Let's go ahead and jump into Friday Night Lights. We got ourselves some great college football games and everything going on tonight and everything like that. We got 3 going on, but we already talked about one of them, and that was the Memphis-Tulane game. We talked about that on Wednesday. So we will get into Fresno State and Utah State today. Fresno State is going to be 5-1. Utah State coming in 3-3. Fresno fresh off of a loss against Wyoming last week. They were on national television on Fox, and that was their big moment to prove that that they've arrived. They're a good team, and let's try to get this good win so we can continue our march to the New Year's Eve 6 Bowls. Well, what happened was they got upended. They got beat, and this was the game. This was the game that they could be upset in. And I knew that going in, but I was very confident that they could still win this game because this team is good. They're really good. But this is going to be tough because Mikey Keen's status, we won't know it until right before kickoff. Mikey Keene got to a little bit of he got a little hurt, and he was unable to finish up the game, and that kind of triggered them losing the game. But there's a lot of reasons why they lost that game, okay? And penalties are something that they're going to have to clean up tonight. That's for sure. They're going to have to clean up their penalties big time tonight. And then you got a Utah State team. They've won 2 in a row. They've been playing good football. They eked out a win against Connecticut. They had a great comeback against James Madison that they failed to win, but they still had a great comeback against them. You know what I mean? They still were able to score 21 unanswered to tie the game up. So this team can score some points. And then last week, they really, really emptied the clip on Colorado State. Like, they truly emptied the clip on them. And this team was down 17-3 in the first quarter and wound up outscoring them 41-7 from that point on. So this team knows how to shut you down and keep scoring points. And that's something that Fresno has to be on the lookout for tonight as well, too. But I feel like Fresno, with the way that they lost last week, they should be ready to go in this game, and they should be highly motivated, knowing that this game was really the one that they could have slipped up in. Wyoming was a game that was kind of an even kill, type of matchup where it was like it could go either way. And I know they knew that going into this. But Utah State is a team that they should beat. You know what I mean? But they're playing tough football right now. This team's won 2 in a row, as I just previously said. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it shakes out. But I'm taking Fresno State tonight with the 4.5, and we move from there. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into our next game, which is going to be this one right here. This is going to be the Stanford and Colorado State game. You got Stanford coming in 1-4, and you got Colorado coming in 4-2. So you have 11.5 point spread tonight and an over under of 59.5 in this game as well too. Stanford is been struggling. They've been struggling mightily as well too. Stanford's one win came against Hawaii opening day. Okay. And then their other games have just been a watch. They got absolutely crushed by USC in their first Pac-12 game of the season. Then they got beat by Sacramento State, of all teams, losing by 7, but they do have Sacramento State's former coach as their head coach now. And then you have Arizona. This was a game they should have won. They wound up losing that game by a point. And then they played Oregon at home last week as well, too. They wound up losing that game 42-6. So they've lost 3 home games in a row after starting their first 2 games on the road. And they got a bye week last week, so that means that you learn some new things, okay? That means that, you throw out all the stuff that don't work and you add in all the stuff that does work. And, Stanford should be a new team this week going against Colorado. Colorado, they have Travis Hunter returning tonight. That should be huge for this team. I know that they're excited about that. Shedeur Sanders has been absolutely incredible against lower run competition, but he's still doing a great job against those guys as well too. And they got a good comeback win last week against Arizona State, a team that, I had beating them. So pretty much, Colorado is coming back with a vengeance right now. They won their first 3 games of the season. Then they came back 2 weeks in a row, got absolutely cooked. Even though the USC game, they were able to get within 7 late. But this team has to figure out a way to not give up 40 points. They've given up 40 points in 3 out of their 5 games this year, okay? And then in another game, they gave up 35. So this team, when it comes to defense, they're not that good. And Stanford, on the other hand, they haven't been good offensively, but you know what? Arizona State's not that good offensively either, and they were able to score 24 points. Also, Colorado State's not the best offense either. They were able to score 35 points. So that just goes to show me if Stanford can play with the discipline that they've had over the last 20 years, Colorado might be in a little trouble here because they don't expect anything from Stanford, okay? But at the end of the day, it's still Pac-12 football. And I truly do feel that Stanford is going to want to get right in this game. They're going to treat this game as their Super Bowl because, believe it or not, it's a winnable game because Colorado is playing on a high. They don't really have the talent to keep up with the big boys like that. But Stanford's not a big boy. But Stanford's the type of team that can have their best night of the season tonight if they want to, because they see who's on the other side. They know that this is a big moment for them. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it shakes out. But I do like Stanford with the plus 11. All right. So with that, we're going to go ahead and take ourselves another quick final break. And when we get back, it is time for Talking Tickets. So you guys stay tuned. This is the premier sports betting show, the PrimeTime Angles, with the one and only Pop DiBiase, the PrimeTime Capper.
Now you and your friends can compete in the sport of kings and win big with Stable Duel. Get the app, pick your horses, and get in on the thrill of horse racing with daily games competing against other players. Bring home the glory and the cash, and move up the annual leaderboard while you leave your competition in the dust. Get in the game with Stable Duel. Play, race, win.
Good News Only Racing Club, led by the legendary Doug O'Neill, the trainer of 2 Kentucky Derby winners, and I'll have another in Nyquist. Also trained 2-time Breeders' Cup champ Golden Sense, who are just a part of a long list of thoroughbred champions trained by Doug O'Neill. The Good News Only Racing Club has a young core of horses to look out for in Dennis's Celery, Irish Heatwave, and Notre Dame, just to name a few. Win the day every day with the Good News Only Racing Club, a proud sponsor of the NFL Bet Exchange.
All right, we're back with the premier sports betting show, the PrimeTime Angles, with the one and only Pop DiBiase, the PrimeTime Capper. So let's go ahead and jump into Talking Tickets, and we got ourselves a bunch of tickets to talk about. And up first, we have ourselves the MLB Series prices. I like the Astros with the minus 140, and I also like the D-backs with the plus 160. Also, we have the ACC bets list for this week, college Power 5. We got FSU 17.5. They opened up as, you guys gotta understand, I do this on Tuesday when I put all these tickets in. So 17.5 to Florida State. We also have VTech money line minus 125. The plus 7.5 on the lowly Pitt Panthers this week. Also big upset brewing here with the Miami money line plus 150. Then we also have the Duke minus 175 money line here as well too. And we move forward. We already lost last night. We were part of that situation. We went from having this team win to having this team lose, and that's exactly how it totally went last night. Absolutely dreadful. 35-39. Wow. And then you give up a Hail Mary, you lose the game 41-39. It happens, though. Iowa State plus 5.5. This is a pretty good, strong play in itself as well. We also have Oklahoma State, who's plus 135. Then we have BYU, who I like a lot this weekend as well, too, with the plus 6. And then we have K-State with the minus 105. We move forward. Let's talk about the Big Ten. We got Ohio State minus 19.5 for their game against Purdue. That game's going to be on Peacock as well, too, and they're going to be on a roll. But the way that they played last week, they showed me that they can get down a few points, or they can have a team think that they're doing something against them, and then next thing you know, Ohio State is absolutely crushing you. And that's exactly what happened last week. They were down 10-0 to start that game off. They wound up scoring 30. They wound up beating them 37-7 after that. So yeah, this Ohio State team is back on the defensive end, and you know what? The offense just does as well as the defense allows them to. So it is what it is. You have the plus 33.5 with Indiana. This should be a good play as well, too. They're going against Michigan. I feel like Michigan beats them by 30 or below, like 27 to 30 points, not 33.5. But we got the hook, so we can take 33 there as well, too. You got Maryland, one of the better teams in the conference, and they had a good measure game for them last week. Yeah, they lost by 20, but they still showed that they can compete, they can hang, and that they're tough out. And they were really, really good to start that game. And it was really tough for Ohio State to figure things out. But when they did, they did. Maryland, though, on the other hand, the matchup that they got going this weekend, it's going to be tough for that team to figure them out. So I like Maryland with the 14. And then, Iowa and Wisconsin's our game of the week. I actually have Wisconsin winning this game by 2 touchdowns. So there it is with the Big Ten. We move forward. We got the Pac-12 now. Stanford, we already got them tonight on the bets, plus 11.5. We got more bets on that game tonight as well, too. We got we got Utah with the minus 13.5. We got Oregon money line with the plus 125. We also have Wazoo with the minus 8.5. And then we have our dog bet this week in the Pac-12, which is going to be UCLA going against Oregon State in Corvallis. All right, so we move forward, and we got the SEC. And the SEC bets list, we got the plus 31.5 with Vandy. We got the plus 19.5 with Arkansas. The Florida money line, plus 110. LSU, 11.5. Also, Tennessee, 3.5. And then we have Kentucky, minus 140. That's going to be the SEC. Now, we move forward to our college bets for tonight, our Friday Night Lights bets. And that's going to be first Memphis and Tulane. Memphis money line tonight, plus 175. I told you guys that the other day when we talked about the game of the week, which is this right here, Memphis and Tulane. You have Memphis plus 3, minus 110 first half. Then also over 13, minus 105 first quarter. And then I got Memphis going over 25.5 points. I feel like they scored 28 or better tonight. We move forward, and we have ourselves Fresno State and Utah State bets. I like Fresno State with the 4.5. Also like the under 28, minus 115 first half. Also like Fresno State money line first quarter, minus 145. And then I'm going to go out on a limb because I feel like Fresno State absolutely dominates this game tonight. And I have them going over their 7.5 right here. So I need them to win by 8 or better so we can cash out a plus 135 on the adjusted spread. Okay, let's get to our final college football game for tonight, which is going to be the Stanford-Colorado game. As I said before, the plus 11.5 on Stanford tonight. The Stanford money line, plus 285 first half. The under 13.5 first quarter, minus 110. And then I have Colorado actually having a little bit of a tough time tonight, going under 35.5 points. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it shakes out. And that's going to be the Stanford and Colorado bets for tonight. Then we have the CFB Rise Shine PK6, which is 69-1. We have Arkansas, that's plus 19.5. We also have the plus 5.5 to Georgia Southern. We also have the over 45.5 to Indiana and Michigan. And then we have Iowa State with the plus 170. And then we have FSU with the minus 19. And then we wrap it up with North Texas with the minus 6. All these games kick off at 9 a.m. Pacific time. And they are big noon kickoff games. So that means back east, they kick off at noon, Central Time 11, and Mountain Time at 10. So that's going to be a 69-1 ticket. Now let's look at our NFL stuff. That's what I'm doing in the NFL this week. I like the Broncos, Titans, Commanders, Vikings, Bengals, Dolphins, Colts, Texans, 49ers, Raiders, Rams, Jets, Bucks, Bills, Chargers. These are my straight up winners for this week. As you guys can see, there's a bunch of dogs there, and these are the most trusted dogs this week. And up first is the Colts, plus 175. We got the Texans, plus 105. We got the Commanders, plus 115. And then we have the Bucks, plus 135. This is going to be a 28-1 ticket, and this is going to be a four-teamer. So when you look at this one, you put up $20, you'll get $560 back for this, okay? And you put up 50, you'll get back 1,400. All right, so this to me is probably one of my stronger dog day pick 4 bets of the year, because all these teams have a great shot to win these games, and 3 of them should be favorites here. Not the Colts, but the Texans, Commanders, Bucks easily could have been favorites. But we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it shakes out. But that's going to be Talkin Tickets for you today. I know it was a lot, but I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. You guys are the absolute best. And when it comes down to it, you already know what time it is. Bet with your head, not with your heart. The movement is moving. This is the premier sports betting show, the Primetime Angles with the one and only Pop DiBiase, the Primetime Capper, and I'll be back at you Monday morning. So you guys make sure to tune in for that. But till then, you guys enjoy your weekend and make sure you keep cashing them tickets and make sure you don't miss the money, because I will be putting up the tweets for you guys in a moment with all the bets that you guys might have missed from not watching the show or coming in on the tailor end of the show. Okay, but it's all good though. But all in all, this is the premier sports betting show, the Primetime Angles, and I am gone.
From the East and the West, you've heard others, but now you've tuned into the best. This is a Prime Wave Media production.